then finally, we come to the last chapter, recasting the mold. So what are you trying to say with recasting the mold in the final chapter of your book? Basically, that Christianity should be ready to change, just like the Jews should have been ready to change when Christianity started to take form. So basically, those who love God, those who follow God, they were used to the Jewish religion that we know now as Judaism. And at the same time, the ancient Greeks, their religion for the most part, aside from the paganistic religions, was philosophy. They accepted philosophy as a way of teaching. It was pretty much the law of Moses to them. So there was some godly truth in philosophy, just like there was godly truth in the law of Moses. So the Greeks who were seeking for something else, they had philosophy. And of course the Jews, they had the law of Moses. And I think that's why St. Paul said in his epistle to the Romans that the Gentiles, even though they didn't have the law of Moses, they still had the law written in their hearts. That's basically what he was trying to say. And for the Greeks, the evidence of that was philosophy. So, but when Christianity started to step forward onto the world stage, basically people had to accept this new way of teaching. It was the new way. They had to be ready to change. Now, unfortunately, there were some people who were not ready to change. There were some people who they couldn't let go of the old way of teaching, whether it was the Greeks of philosophy and the Jews with the law of Moses. There were some who were just not ready to change, and they just kept to the old way. But there were some Jews, basically the apostles, who accepted the new way of teaching, and because of that, they were able to reform themselves and reshape themselves. And because of that, they changed themselves, and at the same time, they changed the world for the better. Absolutely. And that's what I'm trying to say in this chapter, is that we ourselves, no different than the apostles, and no different than the Greeks who accepted St. Paul's teachings, just as they were willing to accept change and move on, and allow themselves to become better people, and change the world for the better, we likewise, we must do the same thing. So even if that means we have to change the way we think about our Christian faith, and change the way how we express our faith, we may have to change at certain points, but it's for the better. So we have to be ready to change. The world was made to change. We must be ready to accept change. Only when we do that can the world be a better place, and can Christianity continue to be relevant to the world at large as times change. And the best way to start is to be honest. Be honest with yourself. Be honest to God and be honest with God. And just go with the flow, as you would say. Wherever that honesty leads you, let that honesty lead you, wherever it takes you on your journey. And that's the best place to start. And that's how we can recast the mold. It's very interesting. Well, Bishop Robinson, I want to thank you for your time with us, and thank you for taking the time to explain everything that you've tried to say in each individual chapter of your book, because, like I've said before, I've read this book plenty of times, and, if I can be honest, sometimes it's very difficult to read because the chapters are so long, and I'm not really a scholar like you are, so I can't really understand all the languages that you use in here, and I'm sure to other people who read this book, they also have a hard time, trying to understand what you're trying to say. So I thank you for taking the time to explain what you've been trying to say. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.